Booger McFarland of the Mothership, the football analyst. He is there covering college football on site last night for the national title game with Michigan and Washington. Booger, thanks for joining us. Your takeaway from this game is what?
Michigan was clearly the better football team. It was a line of scrimmage game last night. And, there was a Super Bowl, I can't remember which one it was, a few years ago when Seattle played Denver. And everybody started to think that, man, maybe, just maybe, really good offense had started to take over. And you could dominate a game with really good offense. And what happened? We saw the Seattle Seahawks dominate the Broncos. And I get the game was in New York. The weather was less than ideal. But really good defense dominated that game. And we came into this game, Dan, saying that, man, how is Michigan going to deal with Michael Penix and his accuracy and these three wide receivers, all of who are going to play in the NFL? Last night was another subtle reminder that really good defense beats really good offense. And it was a professional defense. Jim Harbaugh made a change a few years ago when he went away from Don Brown, the longtime Michigan defensive coordinator, and he got into this Baltimore Ravens tree of defense. It was Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald went back to Baltimore. He got Jesse Minter, but it was essentially the same system. And he did it to beat Ohio State. Well, lo and behold, Ohio State was very similar to Washington. Great quarterback, great athletes, three wide receivers, and really good defense dominated the game last night. And Michigan rushed for 300 yards, and they dominated the trenches. But the single biggest key in the game last night was Michigan's defense. And not what they did this year, but the change that Harbaugh made several years ago, going from Don Brown to this Baltimore Ravens style of defense. And that style is the number one defense in pro football, and it's the number one defense in college football.
Look at these quarterbacks going forward. Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy.
Going forward, I think you have to factor in a lot of things. Number one, age. Penix is 23. He's got a history of injuries, 2 ACLs. Shoulder surgery, dislocated shoulder. J.J. McCarthy has been really inconsistent. He doesn't wow you with the numbers, but he is athletic. He can move, and we see that that's where the game is going these days. I think the number one attribute a quarterback must have, Dan, is the ability to be accurate and throw the football where you need it to be. Michael Penix does that as good as anybody that's going to be in this coming draft. But the knocks against him are what I stated earlier with the age and the injuries. J.J. McCarthy, I'm not really sure he's consistent enough. Last night, he didn't show us anything to change that. He only made 2 or 3 throws that you would deem game-changing throws or throws that you will remember last night. So going forward, I still would rather have Michael Penix Jr. I don't know if he'll be a top 15 or top 20 pick. Hell, I don't know if he'll be a first-round pick. But I do know the one thing he does better than anybody else is throw the football accurately. And let's not take last night as a referendum on Michael Penix. He was under immense pressure last night. And it wouldn't have mattered if it was Joe Montana or Patrick Mahomes last night. I think Washington would have had the same fate because of the pressure and the defense that he faced last night.
Yeah, I thought Michigan did a wonderful job of disguising where that pressure was coming from. And I thought that, Penix couldn't get comfortable. He had a couple of, wide open receivers, a couple of moments there where I thought that they could maybe make it a little bit more of an interesting game. Jim Harbaugh, if you're Jim Harbaugh, what would you do? Let's say you have opportunities in the NFL, but what would you do if you're Jim Harbaugh?
I think I have to explore those opportunities a little deeper and ask the questions. Like the reason Jim Harbaugh, I think, is fascinated with the NFL is because he has unfinished business there. But let's go backwards to the last time he was in the National Football League. He was with the 49ers. Trent Baalke was the GM. I don't think the relationship was great with Baalke, and so they kind of butted heads a lot. And so now you fast forward and bring us to the present day. If he does get back in the NFL, then I think it's got to be the right situation, meaning he's got to have total control. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean he's the head coach and GM. It simply means he's the head coach, and the guy that is his GM is either somebody he picks or somebody that is on the same page as him, kind of like Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch. Like those guys work together. They were hired at the same time. Their contracts are concurrent. So you know that they are in this thing together and they see football the same way. Well, can Jim Harbaugh find a situation, whether it's the Chargers, the Raiders, the Falcons, the Panthers, can he find a situation that an owner that a billionaire owner, and you'll get this better than I do, a billionaire owner is ready to cede control of his entire organization to Jim Harbaugh and said GM. I don't know if there's a situation like that. Would the Spanos family do it? I don't know. They seem to really want to be hands-on. Would Tepper do it? I don't know. He seems to be really hands-on. So, like, if you think about the openings, is there anybody that's going to give him total control? Because I believe that's what he wants. And if he doesn't get total control, I think he's going back to Michigan.
Does Harbaugh's rah-rah style still work in the NFL?
Harbaugh is a leader of men. That works in any company, whether it's the NFL, whether it's television, whether it's Bank of America. When you understand how to lead and galvanize people, then it works. It doesn't matter the style in which you do it in. What matters is, can you relate and can you connect with your employees? That is the essential thing that matters. And yeah, it was different back then. Like, that NFL is different than the NFL now. But guess what? Did you watch the Michigan football team last night? Those are basically young NFL players. Like, it's a lot of seniors and juniors on that team. And so you're talking about really not but 3 or 4 years removed from the median age in the National Football League now. So I would be guessed to say that the average age of every team right now is probably 26, 27. Well, the team he was coaching last night, the average age was probably 21. Like, those, it's a senior-laden team. So he got those guys to run through a wall. Not only did he do that, he got a lot of those guys to come back and play another year rather than going to the National Football League. And so, to answer your question directly, I think his style still works because he is a great leader of men, and that works in any company.
Talking to Booger McFarland of the Mothership. He was at the national title game with Michigan and Washington. If you ran the Bears, you would do what?
I would keep Justin Fields. I would pick up the fifth-year option. And so I would continue to take a look at him year 4, year 5. So I have 2 more years to look at him. I would tell him this. I would say, I want you to succeed. We're going to pick up your fifth-year option. We're not going to extend you long-term just yet. We're going to surround you with every weapon that we can. And we're going to build this football team in the mindset that you are the quarterback going forward. I need you to go out and prove me right. And when you do, not if, but when you do, then we will discuss the long-term deal. I can't give you 5 years and $250 million now, though, because I need to see more. And fortunately for me, I have an avenue in which I can go down that is kind of an olive branch. So I'll extend the olive branch, which is the fifth-year option. I'm not going to cut you. I'm not going to trade you, but I'm going to extend the olive branch. Are you willing to play on the fifth-year option while I build this team around you and continue to progress? If he's willing to do that, then that's the route I go. If he says that I just can't do it, then I'm going to move on. And so I think it has to be a partnership, not a dictatorship, meaning I have to go to Justin Fields and his representatives, and we have to be in this together, because I don't want him coming in the locker room for the next 2 years, unhappy, worried about his contract. Like, we need to be on the same page. So that's how I would approach it.
If you ran the Patriots?
If I ran the Patriots, I would really simply say this. Like, sometimes we all wear our welcome out at some point. Andy Reid, great coach. It was time for him to leave Philadelphia. He's had a ton of success in Kansas City. Doesn't mean you're a bad coach. And I would just simply say this to Bill. Like, we've done a lot of good things together, but I would like to try on a new pair of shoes. Like, there's this new thing that came out called the iPhone. Like, I want to go away from the flip phone and go to the iPhone. Nothing against the flip phone. It did me well, but I want to go to this new invention called the iPhone, and I'm willing to allow you to move on. And I think if you're Bill, there would be opportunities out there. And I would do that sooner than later, so Bill can have his choice of all the opportunities that are open. So I would do this week. So before Friday, I would have a conversation with Bill and simply say this: I'm going to move on. I'm willing to do whatever it is that I can to help you in your next situation. Is that a trade? Is that just a full-on out release? I don't want to fire you. Do you want me to fire you? Whatever Bill wants me to do to help him as we move forward, I would do, because I respect him that much. I wouldn't say, hey, I'm firing Bill. I would just say we decided to mutually part and move ways so we can try different things. But I do think it's time, because everybody needs to change their scenery. at some point. I mean, hell, Dan, you've upgraded your facility at some point. Like you've gotten the doc, even though you've been doing this for a long time. We all need to kind of upgrade and renovate every now and then.
Good to talk to you, Booger. Safe travels. Thanks for joining us as always.
Always, man. Always enjoy talking to you. It's a very pleasant conversation.
That's Booger McFarland, ESPN NFL college football analyst, and won a couple of Super Bowls. He's very good.